Good morning everyone. I am out doing the intro for the video because I forgot to do it. So this is the day after all the cooking, but I had forgotten to do it yesterday. So the video that I'm going to show you has some bread and soup and some mock pineapple as well as normal pineapple cordial. So enjoy watching and I will see you again tomorrow. It's a bit wet and dreary here today, which is kind of nice. The plants could do with the water, but might mean we need to run the generator, so we'll have to see. So enjoy and I will see you again tomorrow. Thank you very much for watching and I'd love it if you'd subscribe, hit the thumbs up button. It helps with the algorithm on YouTube, so it helps me to be seen by a wider audience, which is always appreciated. And I'll see you again. Bye. My day started off with bread, as it regularly does. I made some standard sourdough, no-knead sourdough the night before, but the weather was really cool and we haven't started the fire yet, so it didn't prove very well. I left it till I think it was like 11 o'clock by the time I got to it, and it still wasn't particularly well proofed, but it was passable. Normally I would have done it first thing in the morning and then stuck it in a container and put it in the fridge for the day and then baked it in the evening, but because it was 11 or 12 o'clock I decided that I was just going to bake it and we'll see how it goes. It's proofed enough that it should cook up fine, it's just not perfect. So I just shaped it into boules and put it on some baking paper. I preheated the oven with a cast iron tray in there, and I also had a baking tray underneath that I could put some ice in. I scored it pretty badly because I couldn't find the right razor, but it was to have with soup, so it didn't matter, and stuck it in the oven to see how it went. When I was doing my groceries this month, I found pineapples for 99 cents each, which isn't overly cheap but isn't bad. They were just small ones, and I really wanted to try making pineapple scrap cordial out of the cores and the peels and stuff, so I decided to grab them. I was going to keep the crowns, but I went looking and apparently you cannot grow pineapples where you get a frost, which is a little bit sad because the kids were keen to give that a go, even if it would take 2 years to grow a single pineapple. So I didn't keep them in the end, but I did peel them and dice them up into small pieces. I put the rinds and the cores into a pot with some lemon juice and some water, some rind that I pulled out of the freezer from some lemons, and some tartaric acid. Now, I had forgotten that you're supposed to cut all this up into tiny little pieces, so I realized that afterwards and I pulled it all back out of the pot and stuck it in the Thermomix and diced it all up really nice and fine to be able to put back into the pot, because the smaller surface area, the more flavor and juice you're going to get out of the pineapple scraps. So that's what I did, diced it all up and then stuck it all back in the pot to simmer for, I think it was 20 minutes. I'll link the Sally Wise recipe down below for you to have a look at if you're interested. I packed the jars with the pineapple that I had diced up and put them aside. So it only gave me 3 jars full for those 5 pineapples, which is why I, sort of sat there and went, do I really want to do it? But it was an experiment, and if I can get them cheaper next time, then all to the better. But pineapples are never particularly cheap around me that I've found. But I filled the jars with the pineapple and put them aside for the moment. I also had a tromboncino in the garden, so I went and grabbed it. Now, I have made mock pineapple before, which is using the zucchini as the pineapple pieces, so I thought if I'm going to start the canner up for the jars of pineapple, I may as well have more jars to can as well. So I grabbed the tromboncino so that I could cut that up to make the mock pineapple as well. So I diced it up. You peel the zucchini when you're making it into pineapple, so I peeled it all and diced it up into small pieces. Most of this stuff is going to be used for pizza toppings. The kids do just like to eat it, even the zucchini one, straight out of the jar, but I don't make huge amounts of it, so I tend to keep it for pizzas and then they can have the end of the jar that isn't used on the pizzas to eat. In between all this, I had to strain the cordial, so I just used some muslin, and I put all the scraps from the pot into it and squeezed it through. It took a while to let some drain, let it cool enough to handle, and over the time while I was doing other things, I squeezed it through as much as I could and let it all drain through into the pot so that we could add some sugar to it. I measured out the Tromoncino amounts so that I knew how much I had there for the quantity of brine that I should make, and put it all in a pot with the relevant amounts. And then I added the lemon juice and sugar and pineapple juice. So I actually ended up adding more pineapple juice than the recipe called for, because when you can fresh pineapple, you have to heat pineapple juice, or whatever your choice of liquid is. I was going to use the pineapple juice. You have to heat the pineapple juice to pour it over the pineapple anyway. So I thought if I just bump up the juice quantity, the brine quantity here in this one, then I could use the brine from this over the pineapple. It's going to have a little more sugar in it than I would normally. Like normally I'd use an unsweetened pineapple juice over real pineapple, but it's neither here nor there. It's not the healthiest of jarred foods anyway, and it's meant for pizza toppings, so I wasn't overly concerned. So I did that, and then I had to cook it. So you have to cook the zucchini in the pineapple juice for, I think it's 20 minutes. I'll put that link down below as well for you, for the one of the canning sites that does the mock pineapple. So you cook it in the brine at a good simmer for, I think it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes maybe, so that the pineapple juice and stuff permeates the zucchini. While that was going, I did the sugar into the pineapple cordial. So the recipe asks for 1:1 sugar to quantity of juice that you manage to get out of the scraps. So I didn't quite do 1:1 because I don't do 1:1 in any of my cordials, and I think that would be far too sweet for me. But I did around about the 60-40 like I do with most of my berries. I haven't actually tried it yet, so I'll let you know how sweet it is, because it's probably still a bit too sweet for us, but I'll give it a go. And I put that back on the stove to dissolve the sugar. So once the zucchini is done in the pineapple, we put it in jars. So if you have a look here, you can see the texture of the zucchini has changed. It looks almost stringy like pineapple does. It's amazing. Obviously the proteins in the pineapple juice or whatever break down the zucchini, and so the zucchini ends up this sort of a stringy texture, a bit like pineapple. So I put that all into the jars, and then I put the excess brine to the actual pineapple. And I also jarred up a couple of jars of just the brine on its own. I didn't want to waste it. I didn't want to use it straight away though either, and I thought that it could be used in smoothies or something. Like I could use half a jar in some pineapple coconut flavored smoothie pops that I make for the kids or something like that. I think that might be quite nice. So I canned up the excess brine as well, because I didn't want to waste it. I could have fed it to the animals. The kids possibly could have drunk it, but it's a fair bit of sugar in it. I would prefer to mix it into something than them to have it as is. So that's what I did with that. I then debubbled all the jars, so stuck the back end of the what was it? It was a wooden spoon, I think. It's back end of the wooden spoon into the jars to make sure that everything is settled properly and topped up with any liquid if they needed to be, up to the correct headspace. Then I cleaned all the rims of the jars with vinegar. I use just white vinegar, and I use a cloth or paper towel, whatever I have happened to have handy. Now this is a very sugary mix, so make sure you clean the rims well. I put all the rings on my jars. So these are Fowler's for cola jars, and they use a rubber ring as their seal. There's a little bit of a technique to getting these rings on in full jars. Some people prefer to put the rings on when the jars are empty, but I sort of mastered them on full, so that's what I did. Then the lids need to be placed on top of the rings. I always just run a little bit of a vinegar cloth around the inside of the lids, because everything in our house is covered in dust. So I find it better to just do that just in case. Lids go on the jars, and then we use these clips. So Fowler's for cola jars use these clips, not rings and lids like ball mason jars. So these clips go on, and they're what hold the stainless steel lids onto the silicone rings, which is what seals the rubber rings, they're not silicone, which holds the lids onto the jar and creates that seal. So clips were put on them. These are processed in a boiling water bath. So I got the hot jars into hot water and then brought the canner up to boil, and then they were processed for 20 minutes at a rolling boil and then turned off to let cool. This is the pineapple cordial all done. So I don't buy white sugar, and the recipe calls for white sugar, and I'm sure if you used white sugar it would be a nice sort of a bright lemony yellow, but I use raw sugar so it looks sort of dark and caramelized, and that's fine because we like that flavor anyway, so it should be really tasty. As I said, I'll let you know how it was when I try it. Then I got all the jars out of the canner with all the pineapple products in it. So this is all the jars. The fresh pineapple is still paler than the zucchini pineapple, but it's probably darker than it would be because I used that zucchini brine over it instead of using straight juice or water or whatever else. So they're all a bit dark. They're all going to be tasty. The kids are going to enjoy them on pizza, and I will try and remember to do pizza dough in the next couple of days for them to have some with, because that will make my life easier too, planning a pizza night. This was how the bread turned out. It's slightly underproofed and potentially slightly undercooked because I was in a hurry, but it's perfectly edible and we're having it with soup, so I wasn't overly concerned. So it's sliced up nicely. It's a little spongy, little undercooked, I'd say, but it is great for mopping up soup, and that's what its purpose was. So the kids' favorite soup is a little bit strange. It's something that I threw together one time when we had nothing around. Well, we had plenty, but nothing that they particularly wanted. I have these jars of beef stroganoff on the shelf, and we don't like it much as beef stroganoff because it's a little too strong. So I poured one of those into a pot, and then I poured a big 1.2 litre jar of sausage and potato soup. So this is basically zuppa toscana, but without the coconut cream and kale and lemon juice, which is what we add to it when we're eating it, Darryl and I, generally speaking. And then a jar of just plain stock. So I pour all of them into the pot and mix them together and cook them up, and it is one of their favourite meals. I'd imagine, I have tasted it, it's very flavourful because there's the sausage that I've seasoned and ground myself. The stroganoff is quite a strong flavour, and it's got the big chunks of beef roast in it and things like that, and then it's my homemade chicken stock, which is always nice. But we bring that up to a boil, and then I add a bag of some sort of shaped noodles. So today I used a bag of macaroni noodles because it was on top of the bucket, so it was the easiest to reach at the time, and add that in until it's cooked. And then we serve it like that as a sort of a pasta soup with the bread, and it is one of their favourite meals. It is a strange one, but hey, it's got plenty of goodness in it and they really enjoy eating it, and it's all shelf stable on my pantry, so super easy for me to put together. So that was their dinner for the night, and that was everything. We did have soup as well without pasta in it, just a jar of soup warmed up. I think we had smoked chicken soup with the bread, but I didn't film that. So that was it for the day, and I will see you again tomorrow. Thank you very much for watching.